what kind of horror movie is it that can actually leave countless audience members in silence after they have finished screaming? When the father's urn seeps blood in the dead of night, or when the daughter sees a face in the mirror that is not her own, does a dangerous price hide behind this cherished bond? In my view, the most advanced horror never stems from ghosts, but rather from the process of emotions being twisted and exploited. Today, let's uncover the mystery of the movie, The Grieving, together. The story begins with Mia, a successful gallery curator who is constantly busy with her work every day. Just after hurriedly hanging up on her best friend, her father calls from far away in Italy. However, with the art exhibition opening soon, she impatiently cuts him off before he can say more than a few words, promising she will definitely call him back tomorrow. But she never imagined that this casual promise would become the most frequently echoing curse in the nightmares of her remaining years. Nevertheless, life continues. The next day, her meticulously prepared exhibition is a massive success, and even the top critic Greta shows her great favor. That night, while immersed in joy, Mia returns home and accidentally knocks over a photograph of her and her father. Looking at the shattered glass of the frame, a sudden wave of inexplicable guilt hits her, making her eager to send her father a text message to share this success. However, the message never shows as having been read. At the very moment she is looking forward to a bright future, the eerie occurrences begin. Late at night, a dark shadow slips into her dreams. She hears her father's calls, and after waking with a start at the sound, she actually finds her father standing straight in the shadows of the bedroom. Just as she reaches out to turn on the light, her father's face suddenly distorts. Early the next morning, as Mia looks at the paintings on the wall and relishes the joy of her success, the urgent ringing of her phone suddenly sounds. On the other end, her father's friend tells her in a heavy tone that her father died of a sudden aneurysm a few hours ago. This news is like a bolt from the blue, causing Mia to break down instantly, and the paintings in front of her even seem to transform into vengeful spirits. Staring at her coldly, she immediately drops all her work and flies to Italy to handle her father's funeral affairs. At the funeral parlor, the staff informs Mia that, according to her father's final wishes, his body has already been cremated, and they solemnly warn her that she must never open the urn because doing so is illegal. Mia is overcome with grief, so she decides to take her father's ashes back to the old family house to bury them with her mother. After entering the house, she places her father's ashes on the table and then opens the living room window. Stepping into the bedroom, she picks up her father's favorite bathrobe from the bed to catch his scent before reluctantly hanging the garment on the closet. Upon seeing a photo of her parents, she is consumed by an intense feeling of regret as she holds her parents' engagement rings in her hand. A paranoid and frantic idea emerges in her mind. She must return this love to her father. At this moment, the staff's warning also flashes through her mind for a second. But currently, Mia's desire to complete the ritual completely outweighs her fear of the law and taboos. She trembles, yet remains exceptionally determined as she opens the lid of the urn and buries those cold rings into the ashes. She believes she is stitching her pain back together, unaware that she has personally opened a Pandora's box filled with sorrow and unfinished business. Afterward, she organizes her father's wine glasses. Gazing at the blanket her father used in life, she cannot help but burst into tears, yet she fails to notice at all that the glass she just organized has actually moved on its own. To alleviate her feelings of sadness, Mia starts a video call with her friend Michael to seek comfort, just as she is forcing a smile. The bathroom door actually begins to rattle on its own. Mia rushes over at the sound, yet she fails to notice that in the shadows behind the door, a figure belonging to her father is slowly appearing, but she simply closes the door in silence. However, the true horror has only just begun. After dinner, Mia stares at her father's urn in a daze, then turns and silently pours a glass of wine. The next day, Mia packs and organizes all the items. And while looking through old photographs, she shows a long-lost smile. Next, she throws the bathrobe that was hanging on the closet into the box as well. But unexpectedly, just as she is organizing a drawer, the moment she turns around, she shockingly discovers that her father's bathrobe is once again hanging neatly on the closet. Mia stands frozen on the spot as a chill runs up her spine and she blinks hard, thinking she must have remembered it wrong. She picks up the box and walks to the door, attempting to flee from this room. However, a strange thing happens. The wine glass she clearly organized yesterday is now sitting perfectly upright next to the urn. What makes her skin crawl even more is that there is even leftover liquor inside the glass, the kind her father loved to drink most. But it doesn't end there. While Mia is working in the living room, the sound of doors closing rings out one after another behind her. She cautiously walks toward the door. As she opens the room door, she finds that her father's favorite bathrobe is hanging steadily on the closet. Mia thinks her eyes are playing tricks on her, but after turning on the light, she discovers that everything is actually real. A powerful sense of fear leaves her suffocating. She runs to the living room and opens the cardboard box, only to find that the bathrobe is indeed sitting inside the box. She is at a loss, and her mental state is nearing a breakdown. Amidst the confusion, she finds some discs from her university days. The familiar images and laughter act like a brief anesthetic, allowing her to curl up on the sofa and fall asleep in her state of extreme exhaustion. In her dreams, she vaguely hears her father's voice. She wakes up with a start, yet she feels an uncalled-for warmth. An old blanket she had already packed into a storage box is now covering her body snugly, suppressing the unease in her heart. She cries out toward the empty living room. The immense fear causes her to lose control completely. She calls Michael for help, incoherently talking about the bathrobe and the blanket. But Michael only thinks she is suffering from excessive grief and having hallucinations. The video call ends and silence returns to the house. Mia looks at the last message from her father on her phone, and longing mixed with guilt submerges her like a rising tide. In a state nearly like sleepwalking, she types, "I love you" once again. Almost simultaneously, the notification tone of her father's phone rings out from the cabinet beside her. But what makes her hair stand on end is that the message on the screen actually shows as read. Immediately after, a new message jumps out in the dialogue box as well. "I love you too." Mia's breathing stops abruptly, and she gasps for air due to extreme tension. At this very moment, out of the corner of her eye, she seems to see a hand slowly reaching out from the crack of the cabinet door in the hallway. A figure resembling her father paces back and forth, but in the next second, only after the fright passes, does she realize that the suffocating scene from just now was merely an incredibly realistic nightmare, woven for her by her brain on the edge of a breakdown. Just as Mia is left without any support, she arrives at a cafe and orders a cup of coffee to try and calm her panicked heart. Yet she fails to notice at all an old lady with white hair sitting across from her. At the same time, the voice of a man rings out behind her. By the time Mia turns her head back, that old lady has already walked out. The man's name is Igor, and he too has just lost his mother. So these two people who share the same fate hit it off instantly, pouring out their longing and guilt for their loved ones to each other. Igor's appearance gives Mia a shred of consolation. Right at that moment, a father and daughter walk in laughing, watching the girl smile without a hint of shadow. Mia suddenly remembers that she once laughed that way for her father, but that was a very long time ago. For a moment, her expression is dazed, as she once again hears her father's call. Looking down, she discovers that best dad ever has unexpectedly appeared on her cup. She runs home in a panic. But the paranormal events only intensify, with her father's calls still echoing all around her. Slowly comes to the living room and looks at the urn with great caution. Before she can even calm down, the unplugged phone on the table actually starts to ring. At this moment, Mia's fear reaches its peak, but what consumes her more than fear is a certain thought her father's soul is not at rest, as he is trapped in suffering, and all of this is caused by her. From this point, Mia's mindset begins to undergo a transformation, as she is no longer just a victim wanting to run away, but a daughter with a distorted sense of responsibility mixed with immense guilt. She might feel that she started this trouble, and she must be the one to clean it up personally, even if there are mountains of blades or more sinister taboos ahead. She has to charge right in, and this is often the most dangerous beginning in any horror story. Meanwhile, an old lady named Gloria finds Mia, claiming to be a psychic master while knowing the history of the old house and the habits of Mia's father like the back of her hand. She tells Mia that her father was haunted by an ancient demon during his life, and after his death, his soul was dragged into the demon's dimension, and Mia's act of opening the urn was like carving a hole in a sealed barrier, which allowed her father's pained soul to seek help, while also letting the demon's power begin to seep into our world. Her father is currently trapped behind a door, and that door can only be sensed by those with the blood of kin and a heart of regret. Gloria's voice is low and seductive as she says she can help, but Mia needs to believe her completely and pay the corresponding price. At this point, Mia is submerged by immense hope and wants to grasp this life-saving straw tightly. However, she has no idea whether Gloria's appearance is a savior from heaven or a presence from behind that door. Gloria tells her that the only way is for Mia to personally enter the demon's dimension, find the door belonging to her father, and rescue him. But she also warns Mia that the dimension is full of demonic traps and disguises, so she must absolutely not speak to anyone, because once she indulges or makes a promise, her soul will be left there forever, just like her father, after warning of the dangers in the dimension. Gloria continues by saying that if she really finds him, she must bring him back. After rescuing him, she must immediately scatter all of his ashes. Only in this way can his soul obtain purity and be completely separated from past pain. Gloria's gaze seems capable of piercing the soul, and in her desperation, Mia grasps this only hope, nodding heavily as she agrees to Gloria's terms. However, what she doesn't know is that it is precisely because of this promise that she will be filled with late regrets in the future. Under Gloria's guidance, Mia's consciousness is gradually pulled away, and she enters a bizarre and eerie space. Here, she sees her former self talking to her own reflection in a mirror. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out her name. Mia turns her head and discovers that her father's coffin is placed right beside her. She slowly walks toward her father and lifts the veil, staring at him. But unexpectedly, in the next second, Mia is dragged into the coffin. Moreover, a raging fire rises from beneath her feet. She struggles desperately, frantically pounding on the coffin, and is immediately transported out. The shaken Mia finds herself standing in a bizarre space that stretches as far as the eye can see, where the urns covering the ground are all calling out her name while she is in a daze, the sound of a phone ringing out in the distance. She walks over and picks up the phone. When she turns around, her father is standing not far away, appearing completely unharmed. Mia is overjoyed, but she quickly discovers something is wrong, because Gloria said her father was trapped behind a door. However, in the next moment, she knows this father is a fake, because her father never drank strong spirits like vodka. Mia clears her mind instantly, knowing that this is all a demonic disguise. She angrily exposes the fraud, and the demon reveals its true form, transforming into a hideous, dark monster that scratches her. A pitch-black gate appears, in front of Mia. She cautiously steps forward and picks up the kerosene lamp hanging nearby, only to immediately discover that another kerosene lamp has appeared in its original place. She doesn't have time to think and walks inside with a trembling heart. There are countless closed doors here, and disorganized wooden doors even float in the air with countless wailing souls, seemingly imprisoned behind them. She searches with great difficulty and sees imprisoned souls through the cracks of the doors. Next, she comes to a second door where a weeping man is inside, and he seems to sense her, charging toward the door in a hideous manner. In the chaos, she finally finds the real door imprisoning her father, and she walks in to embrace him with excitement. They arrive at the hall, and the dark shadow from the gloom appears, closely pursuing the father and daughter. Mia puts all her strength into opening that door of death, rescuing her father's soul. Mia sheds tears of pain while the demon pounds frantically behind the door. Time is of the essence, and under Gloria's call from the real world, Mia's soul struggles to escape back to reality. After returning to reality, Gloria tells Mia that there is still one last step to allow her father's soul to rest completely and to prevent the demon from possessing him again. She must immediately return her father's ashes to nature, letting dust return to dust. She must violate her father's wish to be buried with her mother in order to fulfill the wish of letting his soul find peace. She arrives at her mother's grave and scatters her father's ashes around the burial site. This is not a burial together, but a wordless companionship. As she bids her father a final farewell, she understands that she will spend the rest of her life living within this paradox. She used a betrayal of his final regret to repay her previous neglect of his love. However, just as everything ends for Mia, a phone ring makes her feel as if she has fallen into an abyss. The call is from the funeral parlor. The staff member says with deep apology that they made a mistake, and the urn they gave her was not her father's, but belonged to another deceased person. Gloria parades. Mia's mind goes blank instantly. Gloria is dead. Then, who was the Gloria who helped her? All clues connect into the most terrifying picture. That old lady who knew the house history, that guide who lured her into the alternate dimension, that savior who urgently demanded the scattering of ashes, was not salvation at all. This was a scam tailored specifically for her. The truth of the story turns out to be the real psychic Gloria sealed the demon inside her own urn at the cost of ending her own life years ago. The only way for the demon to escape is to trick someone connected to Gloria. Yes, that Mia, who took the wrong urn into opening and scattering it personally. As for her father, he was never trapped in all her struggles. Adventures and reunions with her father were just a shadow play rehearsed by the demon in her mind. What she released was never a father's love, but an ancient evil that had been imprisoned for a long time. At the end of the story, the demon who regained freedom takes over Mia's body. When Igor finds Mia again, all he sees is a shell with hollow eyes and a strange smile on its lips. Mia used love to knock on the gates of hell for her father, but ultimately locked herself inside forever. The story ends here isn't the final twist of the movie. The grieving, very unexpected, but what makes it truly hair-raising is that it punctures a fact we are all somewhat unwilling to face. Mia's tragedy stems entirely from her inability to forgive herself, and that demon happens to exploit this point, constantly whispering in Mia's ear, "Look, your father is suffering, and this is all because of you. It's all your fault." These words are undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. Perhaps many of us have a similar judge living in our hearts. He might not appear in the form of a demon, but he always jumps out to told us when we are most vulnerable. Was some sentence spoken correctly? At that important moment, why wasn't I there? I could have done better. This movie then materializes this silent self-judgment in this cage of guilt in our hearts. It becomes a real ghost that chases you. Therefore, this movie tells us, in an extreme way, regarding those we cherish and love, the most dangerous price is not necessarily what we must pay for love, but that we sometimes allow this love to become a hurdle we can never cross. A sharp knife with its back facing out, but its blade always pointed at our own heart. We constantly punish our current selves with past mistakes. This approach is definitely wrong. Although the ending of the movie is very dark, I think it might also be using an extreme method to remind us, to let us bravely say a word to our own hearts. I forgive you only by untying this knot. Can the echo of love slowly transform from endless sorrow into peace, remembrance? Alright, the story about Mia ends here. I will take you to unlock more different stories next time. See you then.